What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors gets publicly humiliated on daytime television by a host who thinks fame puts her above basic respect? In just 33 seconds, Jennifer Hudson went from America's sweetheart to the most talked-about villain in entertainment after what she said to Morgan Freeman made him walk off her show in the middle of filming. This was supposed to be a simple interview. Morgan Freeman, the voice that narrated our childhoods, the actor who made us believe in hope and redemption, was sitting down for what everyone thought would be a pleasant conversation about his latest projects. The studio audience was excited. You could feel the energy in the room. People were smiling, phones were ready to capture the moment, and Jennifer Hudson walked out to massive applause. But something was different about Jennifer that day. Maybe it was the pressure of hosting her own show. Maybe it was nerves. Or maybe, just maybe, the fame had gone to her head. Because what happened next shocked everyone in that studio, and everyone who eventually saw the footage. The interview started normally enough. Jennifer opened with the usual pleasantries, thanking Morgan for coming on the show. He smiled that warm smile he's famous for, the one that makes you feel like everything is going to be okay. He settled into his chair, looking comfortable and ready to have a good conversation. "So Morgan," Jennifer began, "you've been doing this for how long now? Like 100 years?" The audience laughed nervously. It was clearly a joke, but there was something in her tone, something a little too sharp, a little too real. Morgan chuckled politely and responded, "Well, not quite 100, but it's been a wonderful journey." Right, Jennifer continued, barely listening to his answer. "But don't you ever think maybe it's time to, let the younger generation have their moment? I mean, you've had yours." The studio went quiet. "You?" Could hear someone cough in the back row. This wasn't playful banter anymore. This was something else entirely. Morgan's expression changed slightly. The warmth dimmed just a bit, but he maintained his composure. "I think there's room for everyone," he said carefully. "Experience and youth both bring something valuable to the table." Jennifer laughed. But it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was the kind of laugh that cuts. "Experience. That's a nice way of putting it. My grandma has experience too, but we don't see her trying to be in movies." Several audience members gasped. This was crossing a line, and everyone knew it. But Jennifer kept going, seemingly oblivious to the discomfort spreading through the room like wildfire. Morgan sat up a little straighter in his chair. "I'm not sure I understand what you're getting at, Jennifer." "Oh, come on, you know exactly what I'm getting at," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "You're, 80-something? 85? And you're still taking roles that could go to people who actually have energy, who can bring something fresh. Don't you have enough money by now?" The audience was completely silent now. Some people were looking at each other in disbelief. Others were staring at the floor, secondhand embarrassment washing over them. This was painful to watch, and it was only getting worse. Morgan's jaw tightened. For decades, this man had handled difficult questions, uncomfortable situations, and challenging interviews with grace and dignity. But there was only so much disrespect a person could take, even someone as patient as Morgan Freeman. "Jennifer," he said, his voice low and measured, "I came here today as a guest on your show, expecting a professional conversation. What you're doing right now is disrespectful, not just to me, but to yourself and everyone watching." Jennifer rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes at Morgan Freeman on her own show. "Oh, please, don't be so sensitive. This is just how I am. I keep it real. Maybe that's hard for your generation to understand, but this is how we do things now." "Keeping it real," Morgan repeated slowly, "doesn't mean being rude. It doesn't mean tearing someone down for no reason. And it certainly doesn't mean forgetting basic manners because you have a microphone and an audience." You could see Jennifer starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, she had gone too far. But instead of backing down, instead of apologizing like a reasonable person would, she doubled down. "Wow, okay," she said, her voice dripping with fake innocence. "So now I'm the bad guy for asking honest questions? This is my show. I can ask whatever I want." "You absolutely can," Morgan agreed, nodding slowly. "And I can choose not to sit here and be insulted. That's my choice." Jennifer laughed again, that same cutting laugh. "Insulted? Nobody insulted you. I just asked if maybe you're holding on a little too tight to something that should probably be let go. Is that so wrong?" "You compared me to your grandmother, who you implied has no business being in the public eye," Morgan said, his voice still calm but with an edge to it now. "You suggested I'm too old to be working. You questioned my relevance, my energy, and my right to continue doing what I love. And you did it all with a smile, like that makes it acceptable. The audience was completely frozen. Some people had their hands over their mouths. Others were leaning forward, unable to look away from what was unfolding. This was uncomfortable, raw, and absolutely riveting. Jennifer shifted in her seat. Look, I think you're being way too sensitive about this. It was just a conversation. No, Morgan said firmly. It was an attack disguised as a conversation. There's a difference. An attack? Jennifer's voice went up an octave. Are you serious right now? You're really going to sit there and act like you're the victim? You're Morgan Freeman. You've had an incredible career. You've made millions. You're famous, and you can't handle a few honest questions? Morgan took a deep breath. You could see him making a decision in real time. He placed his hands on the armrests of his chair. The issue isn't that I can't handle honest questions. I've answered tough questions my entire career. The issue is that you're not asking questions. You're making statements designed to demean and belittle, and I won't participate in that. So, what are you saying? Jennifer asked, her arms crossed now, defiance written all over her face. I'm saying, Morgan responded, his voice steady and clear, that I came here in good faith, and you've shown me nothing but disrespect. So, I'm going to do what I should have done 5 minutes ago. He started to stand up. The audience collectively held their breath. Jennifer's eyes went wide. Wait, what are you doing? She asked, and for the first time, there was uncertainty in her voice. I'm leaving, Morgan said simply. You can't just leave in the middle of the interview, Jennifer said, her voice rising. We're filming. Morgan looked at her with an expression that was equal parts disappointment and resolve. Watch me. This is so unprofessional, Jennifer said, standing up now too. You're really going to walk off my show because you can't handle a real conversation? Morgan paused and turned back to face her. Jennifer, I've been in this industry for longer than you've been alive. I've worked with the best and I've dealt with the worst. And I've learned that respect is non-negotiable. You don't have to like me. You don't have to think I'm relevant. But you do have to treat me with basic human decency. And since you can't seem to do that, there's no reason for me to stay. Unbelievable, Jennifer muttered, shaking her head. This is just unbelievable. I agree, Morgan said quietly. It is unbelievable that it came to this. The audience didn't know what to do. Some people started clapping, supporting Morgan's decision to stand up for himself. Others sat in stunned silence. The producers were scrambling, trying to figure out how to handle the situation. Camera operators didn't know whether to keep filming or stop. Jennifer looked around, seeing the support Morgan was getting from the audience, and her face flushed red. Fine, leave then. See if I care. We'll get someone better anyway. Someone who actually wants to be here. That was the moment. That was the exact second where whatever sympathy anyone might have had for Jennifer completely evaporated. Because in that moment, she proved that she didn't understand what she'd done wrong. She didn't see how her behavior was the problem. She blamed Morgan for being too sensitive instead of taking responsibility for being unnecessarily cruel. Morgan didn't respond to her last comment. He simply nodded to the audience, a small gesture of acknowledgement and thanks for their support, and began walking toward the stage exit. His head was held high. His shoulders were back. He moved with dignity and purpose. This is ridiculous. Jennifer called after him, but her voice sounded hollow now. You're making such a big deal out of nothing. Morgan stopped one more time at the edge of the stage. He turned back, and when he spoke, his voice carried through the entire studio. It's not nothing to me, he said. And it shouldn't be nothing to you either. The way you treat people matters, Jennifer. Your success doesn't give you permission to be cruel. Your platform doesn't excuse bad behavior. And one day, you're going to realize that burning bridges and disrespecting people catches up with you. I hope when that day comes, someone treats you better than you treated me today. With that, Morgan Freeman walked off the stage of the Jennifer Hudson show. The audience erupted. Some were clapping. Some were cheering. Some were sitting in shocked silence, processing what they just witnessed. Camera operators kept filming, not knowing what else to do. Producers rushed onto the stage. Jennifer stood there, alone in the middle of her own show, looking around at the chaos she'd created. Her face was a mixture of anger, embarrassment, and confusion. She clearly expected Morgan to just sit there and take it. She expected him to laugh it off, to play along with her keeping it real persona. She never imagined he would actually leave. Well, she said to the audience, trying to salvage something, anything, from the disaster unfolding around her. I guess we know who can't handle the heat. But nobody laughed. Nobody clapped. The audience just stared at her. and in their eyes, she could see what they were thinking. This wasn't Morgan's fault, this was hers. One audience member, an older woman in the third row, stood up and started walking toward the exit. Then another person stood, and another. Within seconds, dozens of audience members were leaving, following Morgan's lead, showing Jennifer exactly what they thought of how she'd handled the situation. Jennifer watched them go, her mouth slightly open, unable to process that her own audience was walking out on her. A producer came up to her and whispered something in her ear. She nodded, looking dazed, and the cameras finally stopped rolling. What happened in that studio became the talk of the entertainment world instantly. Audience members who witnessed it firsthand took to social media immediately after leaving the building. They shared their accounts of what happened, how uncomfortable it was to watch, how proud they were of Morgan for standing up for himself. The footage, even though it hadn't been officially released, started circulating. Someone, somewhere, had captured the moment and shared it. Within hours, everyone had seen it. The whole world watched as Jennifer Hudson, the beloved singer and actress, revealed a side of herself that nobody knew existed. And they watched as Morgan Freeman, with grace and dignity, refused to be treated poorly. People started analyzing every word Jennifer said, every eye roll, every dismissive gesture. They looked at Morgan's restraint, his measured responses, his attempts to de-escalate before finally deciding enough was enough. The contrast was stark and impossible to ignore. Other celebrities started weighing in. Some defended Jennifer, saying she was just being herself, that people were too sensitive. But the vast majority sided with Morgan. They talked about the importance of respecting your elders, of treating guests with dignity, of understanding that having a platform comes with responsibility. Industry insiders started sharing their own stories. Apparently, this wasn't the first time Jennifer had shown this side of herself. There were whispers of other incidents, other moments where she'd been dismissive or rude to people she deemed beneath her or past their prime. But nobody had really paid attention before. Nobody had seen it happen in real time, on camera, for the world to witness. The contrast between how Morgan handled himself and how Jennifer handled herself became a masterclass in grace under pressure. He never raised his voice. He never called her names. He simply stated his boundaries, explained why they mattered. And when those boundaries continued to be violated, he removed himself from the situation. It was conflict resolution at its finest. Jennifer's show faced immediate backlash. Sponsors started questioning their involvement. Other celebrities canceled their scheduled appearances. The network had emergency meetings to discuss how to handle the situation. Some called for Jennifer to issue a public apology. Others suggested sensitivity training. A few even whispered about cancellation. But through all of this, Morgan Freeman remained silent. He didn't go on other shows to tell his side of the story. He didn't post long explanations on social media. He didn't fuel the fire. He simply went back to his life, letting his actions, in that moment, speak for themselves. That silence said more than any interview ever could. It showed that he didn't need to defend himself. The footage spoke for itself. Anyone with eyes could see what happened. Anyone with basic human decency could understand why he left. His silence was powerful because it didn't need explanation. Jennifer, on the other hand, couldn't seem to stop talking about it. She posted several times on social media, each post trying to justify her behavior, to explain that she was just keeping it real, that people were overreacting. But with each post, she dug herself deeper. Because the more she tried to explain, the more obvious it became that she didn't understand why what she did was wrong. She posted things like, "People are so sensitive these days," and "I guess asking real questions is a crime now," and "Some people can't handle honesty." Each post was met with thousands of comments pointing out that the issue wasn't honesty or real questions. The issue was basic respect. One of her posts read, "I respect Morgan Freeman and everything he's done, but that doesn't mean I can't have opinions about the industry." And people responded asking what that had to do with personally attacking him on her show. Having opinions about the industry and calling someone too old to be working anymore are very different things. The disconnect was staggering. Jennifer genuinely seemed to believe she'd done nothing wrong, that Morgan was being too sensitive, that the world was ganging up on her unfairly. She positioned herself as a victim of cancel culture, as someone being punished for speaking her mind. But the millions of people who watched the footage saw something different. They saw a host who forgot that her guests are human beings deserving of respect. They saw someone who let whatever personal issues or insecurities she was dealing with manifest as cruelty towards someone who'd done nothing to deserve it. They saw someone who, when called out, doubled down instead of reflecting. The moment that really crystallized everything was when someone posted a compilation video. It showed Morgan Freeman's kindness over the years. Clips of him being patient with awkward interviewers, being encouraging to young actors, being humble despite his massive success, being generous with his time and wisdom. Then it cut to Jennifer's behavior on her show. The contrast was devastating. Another video showed interviews Jennifer had done early in her career, when she was the newcomer, when she was the one hoping for respect and opportunity from established stars. In those clips, she talked about how much she valued kindness in the industry, how she wanted to be someone who lifted others up, how she never wanted to forget where she came from. The irony was painful. What made everything worse for Jennifer was that this didn't happen to just anyone. This happened to Morgan Freeman. If there was a list of people you absolutely do not disrespect in Hollywood, Morgan Freeman would be near the top. He's universally beloved, respected across generations, known for his professionalism and his kindness. Attacking him was like attacking kindness itself. People started pointing out that Jennifer's behavior represented something bigger. It represented a culture of disrespect that had become normalized. It represented the idea that being real or honest could excuse cruelty. It represented a generation gap where experience and wisdom were sometimes seen as liabilities instead of assets. But mostly, it represented a simple truth that everyone understood. Fame doesn't give you the right to be mean. Success doesn't excuse bad behavior. And no matter how talented you are, how many awards you've won, or how big your platform is, treating people with respect is non-negotiable. The video of Morgan walking off that stage became iconic. It was turned into memes, sure, but it also became something more. It became a symbol of standing up for yourself with dignity. It became a reminder that you can set boundaries without being aggressive. It became proof that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to participate in your own disrespect. In the studio that day, when Morgan stood up to leave, several things happened simultaneously. The audience's respect for him grew immensely. Their respect for Jennifer plummeted. And everyone watching, whether in person or later on video, learned something about grace, dignity, and the importance of treating people right. Jennifer tried to recover. She posted a more formal statement days later, something clearly written by a PR team, expressing regret if anyone was offended. But the "if anyone was offended" part showed she still didn't get it. People weren't offended by some abstract concept. They were disappointed by her specific actions toward a specific person. The statement read like she was sorry people reacted badly, not sorry for what she did. It read like damage control, not genuine remorse. And people saw right through it. The comments on her apology post were brutal. People asked why she couldn't just say, "I'm sorry, I was wrong, I disrespected Morgan Freeman, and it was unacceptable." No ifs, no buts, just accountability. Some people tried to defend Jennifer by bringing up her accomplishments, as if winning an Oscar or having a beautiful voice meant she was immune to criticism for bad behavior. But that argument fell flat. Nobody was saying Jennifer Hudson wasn't talented. They were saying talent doesn't excuse treating people poorly. Others tried to suggest there was context we didn't see, that maybe something happened before the camera started rolling that explained Jennifer's hostility. But even if that were true, even if Morgan had somehow upset her backstage, the way to handle that is not to publicly humiliate him on your show. You handle it privately, professionally, like adults. The reality was simple. Jennifer Hudson let whatever she was feeling override her professionalism and her basic human decency. She took out something, whether it was stress or insecurity or frustration, on someone who didn't deserve it. And when he refused to be her punching bag, when he stood up and walked away, she made it worse by mocking him for having boundaries. That's what people couldn't forgive. Not the initial rudeness, which could have been explained away as a bad day or a misunderstanding, but the doubling down, the refusal to apologize, the mocking of someone for having self-respect. That's what turned a bad interview into a career-defining moment for all the wrong reasons. Morgan Freeman walking off the Jennifer Hudson show became more than just a viral moment. It became a cultural touchstone. It became something people reference when talking about workplace respect, about standing up for yourself, about the difference between confidence and arrogance, about the importance of treating everyone with dignity regardless of their age or status. Teachers showed the clip in classes about conflict resolution. Therapists used it as an example of healthy boundary setting. Business consultants referenced it in seminars about professional conduct. It transcended entertainment, gossip, and became something bigger, something more meaningful. And at the center of it all was the image of Morgan Freeman, standing up from that chair, maintaining his composure, stating his truth, and walking away with his dignity intact. It was powerful because it was real. It was impactful because everyone understood exactly what was happening and why it mattered. Jennifer Hudson's show continued, but it was never quite the same. The incident hung over every episode like a cloud. Every time she interviewed someone older, people watched carefully to see if she would repeat her mistakes. Every time she tried to be edgy or honest, people questioned her motives. The trust was broken, and trust, once broken, is incredibly hard to rebuild. What happened in that studio was a reminder that respect isn't optional. It's not something you give only to people you like or admire or find relevant. It's something you give to everyone, simply because they're human. Morgan Freeman understood that. The audience understood that. And eventually, whether she admitted it or not, Jennifer Hudson would have to understand that too. The 33 seconds it took for everything to fall apart started with Jennifer saying, "Don't you ever think maybe it's time to let the younger generation have their moment?" and ended with Morgan saying, "I'm leaving." 33 seconds that changed how people saw both of them forever. 33 seconds that proved respect matters more than ratings. Dignity matters more than drama. And standing up for yourself is always the right choice, even when it's uncomfortable. That's what happened when Morgan Freeman got kicked off Jennifer Hudson's show. Except he didn't get kicked off. He chose to leave. And that choice made all the difference.